I'm going to toss it over. So I'll just introduce our panel. This is Nate, who leads our welcome team. Him and his girlfriend, Emily, was with us this morning on the live stream, but she couldn't be with us tonight because she had to go back to school. She's in Illinois. But Nate and his girlfriend, Emily, how long have you guys been dating now?
We've been together for about 6 months.
Cool. And Nate and Emily have taken a very, I would say, intentional approach to their relationship. And as we've gotten to hang out more and more, and he's filled me in on what they're doing, I'm like, our church needs to hear this. And so that's why Nate's up here. Emily is up here because there's not a better person in this room to listen to about relationships than my wife. And she's put up with me for 6 years. So that should tell you the kind of godly, amazing person and woman she is. And then we're getting to know the Bartholos tonight, and I'm excited to hear what they have to contribute. Over here on the far right, we have Olivia, who leads worship here at Cross and Anchor. Doesn't she do a great job? And we've got Chels, who is her husband, and they just have a great marriage that Emily and I have gotten to observe up close, and they're going to tell us a little bit about their story tonight. So before we jump into all that, I think a little bit different than how we did it this morning, just because it's a different crowd and we're having you guys join in. We had people ask questions, and you can still text in questions tonight if you want to. The number will go up on the screen, and you can text questions in. If we get a chance, we'll get to them. But somebody asked this, and we didn't answer it this morning. Somebody asked, why so much pressure in Christian circles for a lady to become a wife and a mother? Why so much pressure for a lady to become a wife and a mother? And I just wanted to field that and then have you guys, if you have any extra things you want to say. My first response to that question is there's two responses. So just know that it's coming, two responses. One is if you're a guy asking that question about the girl that you're dating because you don't want to marry her, then that's not a good question. If you're like just leading her on and there's no true commitment and you don't know where it's heading and you don't want, and why is there so much pressure for you to be a wife and a mother? Why can't we just, that's not good. Like we talked about it last, the whole purpose of dating in a godly way is to hopefully find the one person that you're going to spend your time with for the rest of your life. So that's number one. Number two, and I'd love for you guys to chime in as well, is I do think there can be an unhealthy pressure that's put on women in the church. Like, and you said it so perfectly in your message tonight, like there's got to be, like if you're married, that's like the pinnacle. That's the moment that, everything comes together. That's what we're all, it's like, well, what about right now? And don't miss out on what God wants to do right now because you're so focused on something to come later. And I think that there's people who've gotten into relationships that they probably shouldn't have because they felt that pressure from people around them. Don't let anybody pressure you into a relationship. Like, you need to seek God on that. It needs to be the right person, the right time. But anything you guys want to add?
Oh, she's good. I thought that was good. I think you're all right. Actually, I think that's a phenomenal answer to the question. I think the truth of the matter is that there's no pressure from the Lord on women to be a wife and a mother, but there is an invitation from the Lord. Like any good spiritual position or practice, the Lord invites us to that role and says, here's the glory that can come, here's what can happen. But the Lord doesn't pressure us. The reason there's pressure there, like there is any pressure amongst the believers, is because we're humans. And so we're super weird with each other. So we ask questions like, why aren't you married yet? Which comes from a place of love, which is like, I want the best for you, and I'm wondering where you are. But it doesn't sound like that, right? So pressure comes in that mistranslation from divinity to humanity.
That's good. That's good. Awesome. All right. Well, I would like to hand it to Olivia and Chels first, and let's give it up for them. Can you just tell us your story? Tell us how you guys got into a relationship, what it was that made you into each other, all that stuff.
Sure. Well, can you guys hear me? Okay. Chels and I met 2 years ago If you don't know, my husband is also a gospel artist, and so he was having a album release party, and I had been friends with his sister for a few years, so she knew that I led worship, and they were looking for just an opener for his event, and so I agreed, and so that was where we met, was there, and then neither Chels or I were looking at that moment to like be in a relationship. Like, it was not with the intention of like, oh, I looked at his page and he's cute, so I'll go. Like, it wasn't anything like that. It was like we were both just in our purpose. Everything he does is for the glory of God. Everything that I do is for the glory of God. And so it was just an awesome opportunity. And so I took it, and we met. It wasn't like, there wasn't much conversation beforehand. I went and introduced myself to him. And the event happened, and afterwards was really when we started to connect. We obviously had common interests there's a fly in here. I am so sorry. It always makes its way to the stage every week.
Get behind me, Satan. Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies, right?
Goodness.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Bible
you can
jokes.
finish.
Okay, hey, first off, so to just piggyback off what she was saying, I had a release, like album release thing, and my sister, she was like, we need someone to open for you, and then I was like, okay, I'm just gonna give y'all like more juicy details, all right, so y'all can be linked in a little bit more. So, she was like, you want somebody to worship, like who can like carry and kind of like lead the people there to like before like they're already in the mindset. So then she was like, I know someone who can open for you, and I was like, who is it? And then she just was like, okay, I'm gonna show you. So then I was like, don't show me like her or how she looked, just let her sing so I can hear it. And then I heard it, and I was like, okay, let's do it. So then at the event, you know, she was worshiping or whatever, and then it was just good. But long story short, like, we met each other in our purpose. Like, we wasn't trying to like hang out or like do other things to try to meet each other. We were just following God in our purpose, and God just brought us together. So that's how that happened.
That's awesome. Awesome. Nate, you and your girl have a different story of how you connected, but tell us like how your relationship began, and then I'd love to hear just some of how you guys have been intentional from the beginning in the approach to your relationship.
Yeah, definitely. So we met on a dating app, a Christian dating app.
Oh.
Yep. And just because it was a Christian dating app, you know, we didn't just assume that, oh, they're on a Christian dating app, then everything's fine, like their walk with the Lord must be great. So we matched and we were messaging, and right away we were both trying to discern for probably the first month, first few dates, like, are they not like a counterfeit? Like, are they actually walking with the Lord? Are they, you know, going to church? Are they serving? Are they having consistent time in the Word and in prayer? You know, what does their community look like? So, you know, we were both very upfront that we were trying to actually discern this. We weren't like being weird about it, but, you know, we kind of defined the initial stage of talking as, you know, seeing if this would be something that is worth being into a relationship and defining it as dating. So we were talking for maybe about a month or so before we said, you know, we felt comfortable moving into being boyfriend and girlfriend. And then from there, we went into that clearly defining also that, well, the reason that you would enter into this stage of relationship is because you see yourself desiring to be married, and that is something that you are hoping to see if the other person is a good fit for. So throughout this, it's just a lot of clarifying, you know, your expectations for it and making sure that you're on the same page. And as we would move forward in the relationship, we would like have all these almost like tools at our disposal. Like, we would have a calendar for our relationship so we could schedule time with each other and see when we would be available and what we were doing that day, so that we could sort of know how to best communicate with each other for that day. We have, like, I'll circle back and talk about boundaries maybe a little bit, but on our fourth date, actually, even before we were like official, we started the conversation about boundaries and the types of boundaries that we wanted to have in our relationship. in order to most honor God and be obedient to Him, and also to honor each other and honor ourselves, and just have an overall healthy relationship that we could see God work in. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I love the intentionality from the beginning, not messing around. And I love there's a theme kind of in both of your stories of being connected and rooted and being in community. And I think that we don't oftentimes, like, it goes back to even the message tonight, like, we're like, not finding people, but we're not also like getting more rooted into our community. And I think like in that season of waiting, like, what are you going to do that's better with your time than like advancing God's kingdom? Like, you're not going to regret that. There's a lot of things that you might regret that you could spend your time doing while you're single, but that's not one of them. And I love that. And that goes back to you guys. I love how because I know your story a little bit more. So tell us about how like you started dating and just the friendship that you guys built and how other people were involved in it.
Okay. So we started hanging out. We hung out the first time. Like a week after the event. And it was just supposed to be like, okay, we was going to make some music together and things like that. So we just hung out to get to know each other.
Make some music. Sorry, I had to. No, it's all good.
Yeah, so that's what happened. And then we just started, like, we kept on hanging out. But the biggest thing for us, like how Josh was saying, was like our friendship. I'm very playful. I always, like, I don't know. I used to wrestle her, like, pick her up. My mama like, boy, that's a girl. Like, don't be doing that stuff. But we just used to, like, we played games, like a whole lot of games together. And that just kind of built our friendship. Like, it wasn't on no, like, I like you, so let's do this. It was just, like, genuine. It was just, like, we were just hanging out as, like, brother and sister in Christ, so to speak. And it just went from there. I was just like, I really like her. And then you got something to add?
Well, Chels was very intentional about this stage of our relationship. I think after the first time we hung out, we knew that there was something more there, like that eventually we would be more than friends. Like, we definitely liked each other. But he kind of like took a step back and evaluated the situation as a whole and was like, okay, like, yes, although we may be feeling this way, there's stages to this process. You don't just go from 0 to 100, like you just meet and then you're already boyfriend and girlfriend. It's just so important to like create that friendship and to actually know like, okay, I enjoy spending time with this person. This is actually somebody who I could do life with. This is somebody who, is not gonna annoy me after like the first month or whatever. Like, I actually enjoy spending time with them. And things are fun because life is supposed to be fun. It's not just go through the motions. Like, it's good to have somebody there who you can call your best friend and genuinely mean that. So he was really good about that. And I'm thankful for it now, like looking back at it, like I'm glad that we didn't just rush into things.
That's good.
I'm going to chime in again on that. Yeah, because it's like me and Olivia both, we came from like, it was like a bad relationship before we met each other. So I was in like my single stage, and then I was just thinking like, although it feels good, like a lot of times you get lost in that, like, oh, I got a new person that we can potentially like hang out and do life together and we can get married. But it kind of like put like a blinder on your eyes to where you're not actually focusing on what's happening. So what she was talking about, when I took a step back, it was just like I really evaluated myself. And I'm glad you said that because it made me think about what was happening. I took a step back and I said, okay, am I just continuing in this relationship because I feel lonely right now? Or like, am I just continuing because it's different? It's not the old relationship that was crazy. Am I just trying to fill a void? I actually took that step back and said, I asked myself those hard questions that like people kind of gloss over a lot of times. And I would just encourage y'all also to ask yourself the hard questions. And when you guys are serious, like when you meet somebody, don't be scared to ask the hard questions, because it's the questions that you don't ask when you're dating is like, it's like the big bear at the end of those questions where it's like, man, we never even talked about that. But now it's like we're married and like it's this thing that's like, well, we never talked about, and I wish we should have talked about it. So don't be scared to, when you know you're serious, because like a lot of things in your life is not for everyone. But when you know you're serious in a relationship, don't like shy away from really asking the hard questions that can potentially, like, it can break y'all apart, or it can solidify like y'all standards, you know?
That's good, man. Real good. I hope you're taking notes. So I want to go back to you, Nate, and then we'll kind of start to wrap this up, because we're running a little late, but it's all good stuff. I think you and Emily have done such a great job of creating boundaries and being practical about that. One of the questions we got over the week, and it came in a bunch of different ways, but more or less it was like, how far is too far? What are the boundaries? And it's just uncommon in our world today to even have boundaries really at all, especially physically. But I think you guys have really put a priority on that. So yeah, maybe it would be helpful for us to know your guys' process and what you've done and how you've gone about that.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll preface this by saying that both myself and Emily have definitely been in lots of, but like most of our life where we didn't have good boundaries, and we saw like the hurt that can come from that, both to ourselves, to other people, and also just kind of felt like, you know, that this was also not the way that we should be living as followers of Jesus, and trying to be obedient to what God's word says and how we should live. So that was just kind of a precursor, definitely not perfect. But yeah, so when we were getting into a point in the relationship where we thought, okay, we might see something here, we really wanted to get in front of talking about boundaries, because, you know, the last thing that you want is to have a conversation about boundaries after you've crossed the line. However, it is still better that you do that than to not do it at all and just brush it under the rug. Yeah. So we kind of had, you know, everyone thinks about physical boundaries, but we wanted to address boundaries from multiple angles, physical, obviously, but also emotional and spiritual, as well as kind of like spatial. And all of those kind of work together to, you know, keep the relationship healthy and God-honoring. And as we were going about setting the boundaries, we kind of wanted to have like, keep two main things in mind. One, never think about like how far can we go, or like what is the most that we can get out of this while still following the rules. Like we wanted to keep the perspective on like, how can we give God the most glory from our relationship, and how can we be most obedient to him through our relationship. So always keeping God in the sort of focal point. And secondly, how can we basically like protect ourselves and each other for our future spouse, both physically and emotionally, whether that future spouse is each other or whether that is someone else. We wanted to make sure that we're basically like gonna give that other person the best marriage possible, whether or not that was with each other. So that sort of set the stage for our boundaries. And so on the physical front, we were like very like practical up front, and I have like a spreadsheet where I keep track of everything. Awesome. And if you know me, like that's totally Nate. But it starts all the way with like, you know, when would you feel comfortable like hugging, and when would you feel comfortable like front hugging versus side hugging, and like different types of kissing and all that. And we went like all the way to the end just to make sure we're on the same page about everything. And basically like we're operating under the assumption that, you know, any form of like lust or even temptation to lust is sort of outside of God's plan for how a single person should be living. And even though you're dating, like you're not married, and like God views you as a not married person, and so you don't get marriage privileges when you're single. So kind of where we decided, where we felt like we were still honoring God was like a very clearly defined purpose of a kiss, like kind of almost like a farewell kiss at the end of our time together. So that way,
Long kiss goodnight.
just very, very quick peck saying goodbye. So that's kind of where we decided where there was no temptation, no lust involved, and it was just purely like Paul would even write it in some of his letters, to greet each other with a kiss. So that was what we decided for physical. And then spatial kind of supports that, where, things like where you should be going together and what times of the day you should spend time together and where that time should be. So we have a curfew, like not past 10 p.m. when you're alone. Our first 3 months of dating, we didn't do any at-home dates. It was all in public. No Netflix and chilling. Not that that's bad, but we just didn't want to even open that door. Didn't want to give the devil any space to breathe. And then things like protecting each other's sort of spiritual journey. Like I said before, we really wanted to make sure that we had that strong foundation before we even got into a relationship, but then putting boundaries around, not depending on each other for our Bible reading or our prayer time. We wanted to make sure that we were keeping those separate and keeping those strong, and knowing that if we did move towards marriage one day, that it would actually benefit us, that we were both strong when we come together. So yeah, those are just a few that we follow.
Really
But
good.
If you want to know more, I have a lot.
That's good. And I think two things from that. I think some of us might hear that and be like, oh, you're so legalistic, or you're so out of touch, or whatever. But I really want to challenge you, if you're thinking like that Nate is actually, he's a blessing to Emily because he is guarding her. And if you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend who's really trying to ramp things up physically, they're actually, it doesn't appear like this, because it might even, you could feel like if you were Nate's girlfriend, which I'm not, but if you were Nate's girlfriend, you could feel oh man, does he like me? Does he, I need that kind of validation physically to feel that love. But it's actually a safeguarding for the future. And I think that, if you have somebody pressuring you physically, really what they're doing is they're dishonoring you. And they're not valuing the person that God has called you to be. And so that's just such a beautiful example, so thank you for that. And babe, I would love if you could just tell us, as we kind of wrap this up, I would love if you could tell us just a little bit about our relationship and how amazing it is. No, I'm just kidding. If you could just talk really nice about me and tell everybody how awesome I am. No, I'm more interested in if you could just tell us about the beginning of stages of our relationship and how that kind of set a groundwork for the future, and how that's helped now that we've been married for a little while and have a couple of kids and we're in that future stage.
Yeah, we dated long distance for the first 6 months of our relationship. And so, we did have to build that friendship. It was all just FaceTime and stuff like that. And so it was nice because I didn't come from a family that knew much about communication within relationships and healthy communication. And when you're doing things long distance and you're talking everything out, Josh is a great communicator. And so he really brought that gift into my life of here's good, healthy communication. We talk about things. You talk about things with your family. You talk about things if something has made you upset or frustrated or whatever. And so that was something that I learned early in our relationship, as just the value of communication. And to kind of piggyback off what Nate said, because we had very similar boundaries as Nate and Emily, we tried to honor the Lord as much as we could in our relationship, and we were for sure not perfect at all. And I personally brought a lot of relational baggage into our relationship. I was abused prior, and I think that just really messes with your head going into a relationship. And so I would encourage you, if you've had that in your past, let God heal you and work in you. And sometimes he uses other people in your lives to help you in that process. God really used Josh to show me that I still had value, even though I felt that I did not. And Josh always honored me in our relationship. But we didn't do perfect, but we did our best. And one thing that I always remember is Josh had a high level of accountability in his life. And he was a pastor at the time, and so I think that was just kind of a natural thing. But like, you have to be accountable to people. You have to make yourself accountable to people. Otherwise, it's easy to just go rogue. And people that are close to you might not even know. But you have to allow yourself to be accountable to people. And so we would have such standards that, like, Josh had a couple guys in his life that were in his life that he was accountable to before we were even dating, that just knew the things that he struggled with, that would have conversation with him. So these guys, they had him on Find My Friends on your iPhone. And so they knew where we were. They had both of us, and they knew where we were at all the time. And so if it was 10, 11 p.m., and they could see that the two little dots were together, they'd text, "Hey, what are you guys up to?" And it was so awkward. It was so embarrassing. And I hated it, actually. I was like, this is the worst. But it showed me how much, like, Josh was willing to have awkward conversations, hard conversations. Whenever we felt like we went too far in our relationship and we weren't honoring God, he would go and have conversations and tell these guys. And honestly, it held us back because I was so embarrassed that he'd have to have these conversations. So I'm like, we're just not doing this so you don't have to have that conversation because I'm so embarrassed. But that was good. Like, he was willing to have those conversations, have my interest, like, he was valuing himself. And so I think, like, I talked about this in the last message that I gave here. Have people in your life that know your pain, that know your life, that know your relationship. There is something that happens when someone starts dating in the church and they disappear. You kind of have to wonder, like, what is happening. And I'm not, like, trying to throw any shade or anything like that, but, like, let your relationship be in the light. It grows in the light. It can be in the light. It should be around people because your marriage is going to have to be around people. And your kids are going to be around people. And you're going to need people to do marriage and kids with you. Trust me. You got to have a village. So start it now and let people be on that journey with you. Okay, I'm done. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah, I was actually just going to hand it over to you guys.
I just wanted to share something about, we're a blended family. And so when we got married, I was 30 and he was 32. And we shared really great boundaries, like Nate at the very beginning. CB was very accountable to what we were doing, when we were doing, what time we were together, things like that. And he also really put boundaries because he says it himself, I failed miserably before with dating other women with children. And CB and I didn't meet the kids for probably about 9 months before, or while him and I were dating. So we dated for about 9 months before I even got to, like, see the kids or interact with the children. When we married, they were 3 and 5, so they were little guys when we were together, when we first started dating. But when everyone here was talking about how important it is to be honest, we were really brutal. We had messed up quite a bit in our lives. Both of us we have a really crazy past, and I didn't get saved till I was like 27, and his past was addiction and just a lot of stuff that we both dealt with. You know, when we sat at that table after we finally went on our first date, and we were brutally honest with one another, to the point where kind of scary, like, honest. You know, he told me about his addiction and all the debt that he had, and, you know, that I knew that he had kids, and I had told the Lord, like, I don't want to be married to someone that's been married before or that has children. And God gave me him, but God knew exactly why I needed him and why he needed me and why the boys needed both of us together. And so, you know, I share this blended family thing because it's not talked about a lot in the church, and it's kind of frowned upon. But God has done such amazing things in our family based on our blended family. And to just be honest and protect your or be honest with one another and share all the details, because when you share all the details, there's no secrets. And secrets keep you sick. When you're silent, it's could keep you sick. So when you share things with your significant partner or your boyfriend or your girlfriend, and you tell them the deep, honest truth, they know how to help you later on in life. He and the boys are a true testament of God's grace and love for me. My journey has been crazy, and infertility has been part of my life, and God has given me two wonderful, beautiful young men in my life to be a mom to. So just be honest and share your truth, because God has that perfect person when it's your time and when you grow. He has the perfect person for you when he's ready to give it to you. But I think you have to be ready, and you have to grow up. Like he said, there's growth in this process. Man, was there growth in our process. I think we really had to do our singleness for a while before God put us together so that we can make it. And so just be honest with each other and share the beauty of life together. It's incredible. Marriage, I always tell people, marriage is the most incredible thing that's ever happened to me in my whole entire life. So don't be afraid of being married or getting married, because it's a gift from God. It really is.
Amen. Thank you.
Amen. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That was awesome. Well, I'm gonna close us out, and there's all sorts of questions, all sorts of situations that it's hard to get into every one of them. But we would all love to talk with you. Like, if you want to know more, or you want to get more specifics, or you want to know, like, you want Nate's spreadsheet, or you want I think Nate said this morning. It's like, it might be like, oh, well, that's kind of extreme, but it's like, well, you're in a battle. You're really going to go into a battle with no plan? Like, you're like, no plan. Failure to plan is a plan to fail, right? Yeah. And man, if I think I'm actually going to try to get to the finish line and make it there, then I need to have a plan in place. And I think it all speaks to the importance of, just being rooted. Yeah, like it's some of us are like, well, where's my guy, or where's my girl, or why am I not changing? Why, like, I hear messages like tonight, but I'm not changing. I just want to challenge you, like, are you in community? That's really where the change happens. Like, you're never going to change on your own. It's only going to happen the deeper your roots go. And the deeper your roots go, the more interconnected you are with other people who are then sharing from their root system to you. And you're getting to share nutrients and water and, all the things that plants need to survive. God doesn't want you to just survive. He wants you to thrive. And the way you're going to do that is in community. So if you haven't yet, get your roots deep and watch your life change as a result. I know one person asked, this is actually a question I've been asked multiple times. Different people have this experience where they're unequally yoked, where somebody's married, but their partner isn't following Jesus. I just want to tell you, never give up hope. Never give up hope. The book of Peter actually talks about how the conduct of a wife who is willing to be godly in her marriage can win her husband over without even a word. And there's power in your obedience to God that is going to make an impact, and already is, whether or not you see it right now. And I know so many couples who one of them has gotten saved and then the other has followed suit at some point. So don't give up hope. If your past is messed up, all of us, none of us are perfect up here on this. Don't get the wrong idea. All of us have things that we're dealing with and that we've dealt with, but we're walking forward in grace and knowledge. And so I want to thank our panel. They did such a great job. Thank you all. Thank you, Pastor CB.